Don't talk to your personally. Yeah, we're waiting for them to send it back.
And there's Emily.
Hi, Emily. Where's your flip flop?
I want you to know,
Where's your flip flop?
tonight, I have that on my board.
Well, there's snow on the ground. Why not?
Guys, tomorrow. You know,
Tell you what, my hair's better and better.
I said it's just.
I remember.
Which workshop? Yeah, is that 226? Yes.
yeah, that's the one.
Thank you. I knew the dates. I'm just lucky I can remember how to go home.
Ridiculous.
You don't care.
See, well, when he sees it, comes out about 2:30.
Good evening, council. I'd like to welcome everybody to the City Council workshop of February 26th, 2019. First item is public input. Citizens may address the council on anything that's not on tonight's agenda. If you would like to address the council, you have a 3-minute time limit. And while addressing the council, anything that's not on tonight's agenda, the council will not entertain questions or converse with you on those items, but you're welcome to bring anything to their attention that you would like. Outside of that, items on the agenda, there will be public input on those items as they come up. Would anybody like to address the council on anything not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, then we will move on to general items. And under general items, number 1 is introduce planner to the council. So I'm going to have CAO Lurker introduce the new city planner to the council. He will introduce himself, and then you all can grill him if you like. So.
We would want to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. After, as we discussed a few weeks ago, almost a month ago, on the search for a new city planner, we did a thorough search, and I think if you ask him, he'll tell you that it was a pretty thorough interview process for him. But I am pleased to introduce Mr. Nick Altanaga, all the way here from the sunny East Coast. And he is here for you and to introduce himself and maybe share a little bit about him. So Nick, if you could just come forward to the podium.
Good to meet all of you, or, at least introduce myself. I'm from New England. I'm really excited to be here. I looked for a position like this, a lot of interesting stuff going on and an interesting community and area, and Montana's always been kind of a place I've wanted to be, so I'm happy to be here. I don't know if you have any questions or...
Feel free to ask him any questions. He's already unpacked the U-Haul.
Did you bring a snowblower with you?
I did not. I'm hoping that the apartment complex I live in does most of that work for me, but...
Hope so too.
I'm sure most likely they will, so.
Yeah.
We are, Forrest will be working with Nick on a couple of projects that he's been heavy into before the council on Friday to bring him up to speed on those issues. And outside of that, we're starting to, we don't want to let him get his seat too warm and comfortable, so we're starting to throw things on his desk. So, but Nick's been looking forward to embracing those challenges we have before us. So, if there anybody that has any other questions for Nick, Councilmember Wilkie.
Yes, sir. You have family?
I do. I have, back home, I have my dad, a brother, a sister, and then cousins and all that.
So you're not married, I think?
No. I do have a partner, but she's down in Texas right now. So.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Of course.
Councilmember Monsieur.
Thank you. Would you spell your last name for me?
Altonaga.
Thank you.
Well, with that, we'll let you either stay and enjoy the rest of the meeting, or it's entirely up to you. We have another issue before us that will be coming to you, so maybe of some interest to see some of that before you meet with Forrest. So I thank you.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Bring your coat. Heavy.
Item number 2 is the appointment of John Rutt to the Park Board for term ending December 31st, 2022. And you have a copy of his letter. And I would just like the council to be aware there was a question concerning residency issues, especially on this Park Board nomination. Mr. Rutt lives just outside of the city limits in the county, but if you would refer to, what is it, Title II, Chapter 20, I believe, 28, maybe, 101, 010, under Park Boards in your LMC. It states that there's a 2-mile buffer that we allow outside the city limits, and that's, I guess, within that 5-mile buffer that we actually have full jurisdiction over via police and zoning. So that's why I think that had been included in the LMC. We're going to do a little bit better job of vetting those nominations or applications for boards, commissions, and committees. And we're going to undertake just a look-see at where we are with our current committee members. Just make sure everybody's in compliance. Is that 228? 12? Under what title? 2? Title 12, 28010? Anyway, I looked that up and sent that to Brittany via email, so we clarified that. So is there any questions on the appointment of John Rutt to the Park Board? And Mr. Rutt lives not only within that 2 miles, but he lives literally on the line of the city limits in the county. Next, under executive review is the resolution. It's a resolution accepting proposals submitted by Morrison Merrily Systems to provide the city's information technology, support and services, and authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Morrison Merrily Systems for such services. And I'm going to have Matt Lurker, CAO Lurker, introduce the IT folks that are here representing the company that we've chosen out of the 3 applicants that we narrowed down, which did include our current IT provider.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The RFP process that went out, we included a site visit and a tour of city facilities, and we requested as many vendors as possible to submit their proposals under a fixed firm pricing contract. This is the first time that the city is pursuing a fixed firm pricing. The contract will extend for 5 years, and under a fixed firm pricing contract, the city will be paying a fixed amount every month for IT services. The only time we will incur services or incur any fees above what's already in the pricing schedule is if we are replacing equipment, or if we're adding to or subtracting from our existing infrastructure. So this is essentially, if you will, an all-inclusive service offer or proposal. And this proposal, not only it was ranked number 1 out of the 3 that we narrowed it down to, obviously, and they were also had the best pricing, not just the best services available, but also the best pricing available to the city. And here to answer any specific questions that the council may have, we have Thad, who is from their local office here in Billings, and he can address anything specifically.
Good evening, council members, mayor. I am Thad McGrail with Morrison Merrily Systems. I'm their account manager here in Billings. And thank you, Matt, for defining the services. We're excited to work with you guys. We are pretty familiar with municipalities, both cities and towns. So we'll be doing some more discovery as we sign the agreement. We have to complete a little bit more formal network map to make sure we understand exactly what we have to cover. We're 98% there. I'll draw on Matt's comments with regards to exclusions. In our RFP, we still will want to finalize our service level agreement, which is Appendix A, and it'll be Attachment B. That's the service. It's named Systems Managed Service Level Agreement. There's page 3, item number 6, which is excluded services, and this is the technical side of it. But Matt pretty clearly defined. The only time that there's going to be extended charges to the network and service will be when we add to or take away from the network itself. So if you have to get a replacement machine, of course, that'll be approved by your processes. And then there would be labor dollars by our technicians to come in, remove that machine, migrate the data, add it to the directory, set everything up. So that's the only time really you're going to see extended costs beyond the fixed firm price. There are some other exclusions that we have in there. And if you'd like to comment or talk about those, we can cover those. But once again, we'll want to do a little bit more vetting around the service level agreement with regards to like software packages that might be specific. We talked about the water treatment plant having a unique, very unique system over there, and how we can support that. There won't be any additional charges to supporting that network or that software. But we just want to make a really good effort in discovery to make sure that there's nothing that's going to catch either party by surprise with undue or excessive hours of support that would then throw this fixed firm price into a tailspin.
trying to find the pages that we.
And while the council is reviewing the information, with Thad and his team, they will also be coordinating or collaborating with our VoIP vendor when that vendor is announced, and that was also in part of the contract bidding process, is they had to commit to work with each other as well as our other vendors, such as the vendors down at the proprietary software and network systems for the wastewater treatment plant and the water treatment plant, and our 911 system as well.
And what Thad was referring to were pages you don't have. We had a multitude of pages in the RFP that answered all of our required questions and requirements. And we reviewed this with Sam, the city civil attorney, to ask what would be the best to provide to council. And Sam replied that he thought that if we provided page 26 through 42 of that service and support proposal, that would show council the main issues. So that's what we have for the most part, is the meat and potatoes of what we're doing and what the scheduled fees are, and the summary of what you're providing.
And I've spoke with Sam earlier this week as well, just to cover, exactly what would be signed in terms of quote-unquote a contractual agreement. And essentially, it's everything that was included in the Appendix A.
Right.
And once again, that service level agreement still has to be fully vetted or fully committed to. And like I said, we're 98% there based on the process that you all outlined. But we'll want to dot our I's and cross our T's as we go into discovery and offboarding your existing contract.
Right, and we understand that as well. We have gone through the clerk treasurer and had her pull up everything through Amber with accounts payable to find out where we were with our payments for our current IT contractor, and where we are year to date this year, which the costs are increasing slightly, and this still is, we felt, was better service and for a cost savings for the city.
One of the things that we did is to provide a 5% discount in year 2. The machines that we employ, the way that we'll put them to use in the network should make it easier for us to manage the network. And we feel as a company that if we are optimizing the efficiency of management, you shouldn't have to pay a premium for that. So during the first year where there is a lot of work in bringing the network on board and to discover and run it, that's one fee. And then the following years after that, it should be stable, and you should incur that discount. We did place in there, typically, we like to look at it year over year and make sure that there's been no bubble or disproportionate growth or contraction, where in that you would want to revisit the pricing. But that usually is pretty rare. We'll see a little here, a little there, but there should be very limited amendments, based on growth.
And with that, I intend to have your email pushed by Microsoft Exchange like I had demanded it be done to begin with, and my IT provider did not do that. They merely passed the POP on to your Microsoft Exchange mobile, which I could do. I did that on my phone 8 years ago when they gave us email, and it was POP, and it was a web client that was clunky and bulky and slow and inefficient. So I just pushed it right over to my Microsoft Outlook, mobile Outlook. so I could receive my mail there and utilize it a little bit better. So you'll have an email client, as you should, that you can utilize, that you're able to get calendar notifications and for meetings and see those different things. It'd be much easier to communicate through the council and with the council. So.
Yeah, and we're going to look at mobility and redundancy, and again, those if it's deemed a project, if we do like an Office 365 migration away from your current email host, there, we'll provide a proposal to be voted on by council and approved before any of that would ever go forward. That would affect, a project cost.
Do you have anything else?
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
Moving on to council issues. Number 4 is annexation and zoning discussion, and I have both Forrest Anderson from KLJ, our contracted planner, who had been instrumental in the beginning phase of the annexation and zoning request that was before the council a few weeks back, and under workshop, and then with the public hearing. And the council had mentioned that they were upset that they did not have any representation available to answer questions that they had at the workshop concerning both the zoning and the annexation. Was after that public hearing, when staff noticed that something didn't seem to be right, and got to looking a little bit deeper. Kurt was the one that found that out. It was based off of a question, I think, that Councilmember Herr brought up, and he asked his wife to take a look at a drawing of that plot, and asked where the boundaries were. And when she replied to him, and he looked at that, he said, "Right, but that's not right." And so he immediately went to work the next day and got to looking at that, and found that there were issues with not only the boundary, but then we discovered that there was a street on there that's actually on private property. It's not fully public right-of-way, or properly anyway, deeded right-of-way. There was another issue on another boundary on another side of that, one of those sections that were involved. So I am going to let Forrest and Kurt come up and explain where we're at right now. I don't know if, what's more important, the problems. Obviously, the problems, we're not going to bring anything to the council until they're addressed, so that they meet our annexation requirements via the resolution that the council passed in 2008. So we want to make sure that that's proper. I'll let Forrest come up and brief the council on this.
If I may, Mayor, could I defer to Kurt and let him outline the issues?
Sure.
And then maybe I could
Have him frame it, and then you...
have him frame it, and I could speak to potential solutions.
You bet.
Good evening, Council Mayor, Mr. Licker. So after the public hearing and discussion, I was asked boundaries about where the boundaries of the city limits are by a council member. I tried to explain it on your maps. A better look at it is if you look at the ward map, which is on your tables. Your ward map is actually your city limits. So if you look at our zoning jurisdiction map, you have highlighted lines are drawn around subdivisions and certificate surveys and all sorts of stuff. So you see all these highlighted lines and you look at it and you don't really have a clear picture of the city limits. But your zone map, your election ward map is actually your city limit map. And so we have your subdivisions on one map, your zoning or your election wards on the other. And if you kind of look at both of them, you get a sense of where this property is and where the city limits are. So the city limits are right directly across the street from this. Looking into that, I was looking into the plat and realized that the legal description of Lot 25, which is on Yard Office Road, does not go to the section line. There's 30 feet missing on the plat of third filing. So then I looked at across the street, which is Village Subdivision that was annexed, I believe, in 1982, and it dedicated to the middle of, or the section line. So section, I believe it's 10 and 11. And it went all the way to the section line, which we assume the center of the road. On the other side, there's 30 feet that's missing out of Nutting Brothers' third filing. So I went to the county courthouse, I researched that, who owns the 30 feet, and that is still questionable. We don't know who owns it. The county doesn't seem to know who owns it. They believe the original property owner owns it. When they did the filing on third filing, which was in 1940, I did a little research with Judy Goldsby on Ancestry.com and talking at night, and they perished. One of them, gentleman that was on that, is in our cemetery along with his wife. So their son didn't have children. His son was also the president of the corporation that did third filing, and he is deceased and he has no children. He has a sister. She is deceased, had no children. So the Nutting family, that lineage looked like it was playing out as no heirs, but they did have L.A. Nutting, who did all the Nutting Brothers subdivisions, was part of that, was part of creating the Citizen Bank in Laurel. He also wrote a book about his time in Laurel area, and I went to the Billings Library on a Saturday and read his book, 41 pages. It's called Raw Country. Tried to figure out what's going on in Laurel. So I did all that. After researching that, I ended up at the county courthouse, and we were looking at with GIS, Yellowstone County GIS, and they brought it to my attention that Lot 25 actually encompasses Eleanor Roosevelt Drive. And the white that you see on your maps show a road. It's on your jurisdiction map in front of this property. There's a white line, and it's called Eleanor Roosevelt. That white line possibly is an error. GIS, thinking that there was a road there, just drew a line in his GIS data. But if we look at the plat shows Lot 25 encompassing Eleanor Roosevelt from 1940. So I went to the clerk and recorder's office. So I found that out on 3 o'clock on a Friday. I came back, I notified Forrest, we may have another issue. The next week I went into the county clerk and recorder. I asked for the plat to review and see where Lot 25's boundaries were, and they told me it encompasses Eleanor Roosevelt Drive. So we have that issue. Lot 25 encompasses that. So there were some ideas of when you annex, and we wanted to make sure that staff and Forrest, we were following what the guidelines that you have adopted in the annexation policy. We wanted to make sure we were following those guidelines and what we were actually going to receive during that annexation. So with that, we, Forrest did engage with performance engineering and start talking about some of these issues. So they were to prepare an annexation agreement where we could review by staff and get something to the council that is workable. Everyone's in favor of it. The city council can be confident that we've done our jobs as looking at the issues, how we're going to resolve those issues, and how it's going to be moved forward. So with that, I guess that's framing some of the issues we wanted to talk about. Of course, we did show you in the public hearing water and sewers in the area. There were some, it's not adequate for the development. First, as far as sewer, they would have to do some improvements to make that subdivision work. So there's some issues with that. We want to make sure the roads are there. As part of the public hearing was discussion, the public comment that you had here and also at the planning board was we want to make sure the roads are in good shape, that they meet city standards, and that the city council is doing what you're supposed to as per the annexation policy. So we're looking in all those. I don't believe it's ready for the council. I think Forrest can talk to that more. I've been on vacation for 5 days, so I just got back, and Forrest has been working on it in my absence. And is there things that you would like to discuss, Forrest, I guess?
Certainly. Thanks, Kurt. Okay. I guess let's start with the first thing that I told the council, and good evening, Mr. Mayor, council, for the record, Forrest Sanderson. Essentially, we're looking at the potential for three things here: annexation, zoning, And we all know that at some point development will occur. Those are the three items. Annexation is a discretionary item. It's a business deal between the city of Laurel and a prospective landowner developer. That item is discretionary. The council has given a policy statement in the form of Resolution 0822. A copy of that resolution is in your packets this evening. Wanted to make sure, or at least what I gave to Brittany had our 0822. Wanted to make sure that we're all operating from the same playbook, the council's policy guidance on annexation. The second item under discussion is the zoning. You have less discretion in the assignment of zoning. Zoning under Montana law, be it municipal or county, must be adopted in accordance with your growth policy and 11 other findings of fact and conclusions of law that support the rational nexus for arriving at the conclusion. If you remember back at the public hearing, I read those 12 points into the record verbatim from your zoning commission's public hearing. We then, at some point, we will look at annexation. The annexation subdivision, we will look at the third point, development. What we're doing here is we're setting the framework for urban scale development with urban scale infrastructure. Those should hit at a point where the development comes online, the roads, water, sewer, storm sewer, all of those public urban scale amenities are there and ready to be used by the residents of that subdivision and the citizens of the city of Laurel. And that has to happen in accordance with your resolution. Taking a few steps back to the public hearing, we had the one gentleman, he testified, and it really resonated with me. And hence you got the cryptic response from me. I want to think about what I heard. I want to come back to the council and outline a path forward, because what I heard is, and it's not completely true, but I'm paraphrasing what was said. The gentleman was much more eloquent than I, but he said, in essence, the city of Laurel doesn't have a really good track record of ensuring that things get done. Now, we all know we're not perfect, and Laurel has done amazing things in the time I've been watching, which is approximately 34 years, what you've been doing here. You've done some amazing things. We've done some things not so well. And the last thing I wanted to do was to leave you with a planning board recommendation which had a condition. Condition number 1, comply with the annexation policy. Well, that means something to me as I read your policy. It's fairly clear. It might mean something a little bit different to the 8 of you who have to make the decision. And we learned something along the way. One issue that Kurt didn't touch on, Lot 18 is actually developed. Under the annexation policy, where that property is developed, the city council has not given staff the ability to say, we've got this for you, the condition is fine, and we'll sort out the details. Council policy says you will get an annexation agreement that spells out an answer to each and every one of these points. So what I did is I sent Scott at Performance Engineering an email that outlined the major tenets of Resolution 0822. Said we need an annexation agreement that addresses these points. We need a draft exhibit in the form of a map showing the lands, the rights of way, all of these issues, so the council is making an informed decision, and the agreement that comes behind that, if approved, becomes a contractual arrangement between the city of Laurel and this developer. Developer does this, the city does this. And we're working that. Scott sent me a draft of the agreement today. I haven't had a chance to review it thoroughly and in detail, but ultimately, This is a contractual agreement. If we can get to the point where, as your city staff, and by that I mean Nick, Kurt, and your civil city attorney, Sam Painter, are comfortable with the agreement, they would then say so to the city council. Obviously, I'm going to play a role in that where I've started this process. I'll work with Nick and Kurt to move this forward. But at the end of the day, in order to comply with your policy and the recommendation from your planning board, we need an annexation agreement, we need the exhibit, and now you have my answer or the reason and the rationale behind my cryptic response. I want to leave this project with a clear playbook that says we do this, 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 this. The developer does this, this, and this. And we can then move forward to that point where we have the urban scale infrastructure to support urban scale development under the RLMF and the CC zones. And the city can say to its public, you as the elected officials can say to your constituency, we followed our policy, we heard you, and we responded. I can't see any better way forward. The simple fact of the matter is we're dealing with the crux of the issue at annexation. We're going to deal with this stuff up front where we have discretion. If we're not getting what we need to see as a city, or the developer isn't getting what he needs to see in terms of commitments from the municipality, you can walk away, no harm, no foul, both sides. Once we have cleared the threshold of pure discretion on both sides, things get a little more difficult to say yes or no. Obviously, the zoning and the recommendation, I still believe that the recommendation from the planning board as it pertains to the zoning is spot on. But we haven't addressed the discretionary issue of urban scale development and urban scale infrastructure at the time of annexation. And part of that agreement is sort out and solve the problems that Mr. Markegard spoke to you about in terms of quieting the title to 30 feet of land, getting the rights of way dedicated at appropriate widths to support urban scale development, and the like as we move forward. With that, hopefully that explanation addresses the cryptic answer you got the night of the public hearing. I apologize. We've been trying to run down other issues, and it wasn't worth the council's time to come and talk about the hypotheticals. We now have enough facts in place to where we can chart that path forward, and we're working towards the annexation agreement. And when that's finalized, then the matter will come forward for the council to consider. You'll be armed with information and knowledge and make an informed decision. Mr. Mayor, I would answer any questions.
Council, does council have any questions for Forrest? I would like to remind the council that the annexation policy that Forrest Anderson referred to under resolution R08-22 is in your packet, so you have that. That would be what anybody would have to conform to in order to be considered to be for annexation. I believe that would probably also address another previous annexation issue we had where we had less than what was required to be annexed that was being proposed. An earlier issue that the
Yes,
council
Mr. Mayor,
turned
if we think back, you're absolutely correct. We had a proposal that didn't meet one of the baseline criteria, and that was to be at least 2.06 acres in size. And frankly, the recommendation was, let's not proceed with this. It's outside the bounds, and the council held firm on that. Yes.
In lieu of that, we'll continue to work with that developer and see if we can get them to provide a plan of annexation that meets our criteria that you can then consider along with the conditional zoning. They would both be conditional upon items being fulfilled by that developer, both the annexation and the zoning. So it would be a matter of them fulfilling what we deem necessary to have completed before then we go through that process, but we then tie ourselves to complying with that once those items are done, to go through that process in the either annexation and/or zoning, which would be by council, what council approves. I realize we need growth. We want growth, but we want responsible growth. And this council's been pretty good at looking at the issues and asking the right questions, and will continue to ask you to challenge you to do that as we go forward. So we'll get the opportunity to bring this forward, and if not, then we'll have a recommendation that we deny that. So we will see where we come out.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Next on council issues is update on the West Railroad urban route. And we had a preliminary meeting with the state of Montana on the urban route designation for West Railroad. And it was erroneously brought up to the Public Works Committee that we ran into an issue with the state and we weren't able to afford to do that, and that wasn't necessarily the case. And there was some questions asked to me, and I would just like the council to know, and I know it's very important for a couple of ward members that are in the first ward, A and B. We had our initial meeting. Now, in our initial meeting, the Montana comes to us and they tell us that they have a cost estimate. Now, we felt that their cost estimates were high, possibly much higher than they really needed to be or should have been. We don't know for sure at this time, but there was a difference between $700,000 and $2.5 million in shortfall by their two cost estimates. So that doesn't send us packing up our bags and going home, taking our marbles. We're going to pursue other options and find a way to move forward on that project and get it accomplished. So we've discussed some options, and we're still in the process of looking at some things we can do differently, and then we'll pitch a new proposal on that, and then we'll report back to City Council. And most importantly, you two over there. I think it's a project that can be done. Just a matter of rolling up our shirt sleeves and working hard to find a solution. I think there's always a solution that is viable. If you work hard enough and long enough and get creative, you'll find it. So that's what we're doing. Is there any questions on the West Railroad urban route at this time? I don't have many answers to give you if you had any. But we're in that preliminary phase, and we're going to continue to work to find a solution that gets us together dollar-wise so that we can get that project underway.
Well, I think it's great. So I'm glad to hear that we're still working on it.
We are, and we'll continue to, and you'll get updates as soon as we have something to bring to you. We will bring those forward to you. Any questions on that?
So, Mr. Mayor, was my understanding you said the project could run $2.5 million? Is that correct?
Below what the urban funds are that are available for that project.
Okay. So what was the bid on the project, if you don't mind?
There was no bid.
There was no actual bid? Okay.
It was just an estimate by the Montana State.
And what was their estimate, if you don't mind?
Their estimate was between $3,760,000, or no, excuse me, their cost estimate was between $4,400,000 and $6,200,000.
Okay, thank you.
So it was a pretty wide swing.
Yeah.
And that included items that we felt that weren't necessary, and I think it included more items than we were thinking that we were going to be including, just because of the relationship of the properties on both sides of that street are that we would have to have. So we're still gonna come back and take another look at that and with some options. And we may even, I don't know, we're gonna try to get a better idea of what our cost estimate is before we go forward again.
Good deal. Thank you.
All right. Next item on council issues is the Laurel project update. And again, it was brought to my attention that maybe there was one or more members of the city council who had been led to believe that we were not going to start the Laurel project that I had directed staff to undertake on the east end of the Laurel district for the streets at Washington, Idaho, and Ohio that are in terrible shape. A lot of heavy truck traffic in those areas that service those businesses that are within that TIF district. The comment on 3 years was correct. The TIF district itself will expire in 3 years. I hope to undertake that project beginning this year on those streets. In doing so, we would bond that project against the Lura, and then that would extend the Lura district out for another, how many, 20-some? Up to 20?
I can't remember.
Up to 23 or 24, I think, years, but whatever the max is under state statute. With that being said, there's also a possibility, and I don't know, I guess we've looked into it. I'm just going to say there's other options that may include Lura that we've been looking at, whether there's any viable options as far as that West Railroad. So we're gonna overturn every rock and look under every stone and find solutions for that. But the Lura project over here on the east end of town is something that I would like to get that started this year and bond against that. That would extend that TIF district out for that period of time to pay down the bond, and then there would be still money available for those properties within the TIF district. Are there any questions on the Lura project update after that? Guys are too easy. Going once? All right, moving on. Other items, under other items, I have nothing. Review of your draft council agenda for next Tuesday. Which is fairly short, 2 scheduled items on that. Any questions on that whatsoever? Attendance at the upcoming meeting, council meeting. Anybody not going to be able to make it? Full house. Let's see if Stokes will be there or not. We'll go to announcements. Or any council members have any announcements that they would like to bring up to the council or to myself? Councilmember Closey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing.
Nothing? Councilmember Sparks?
Yeah, I just want to thank our Public Works Department for their very hard work the last few days and keeping our streets shoveled. So, thank you.
And that's been with more challenges than you know in equipment and failures, and they have done a great job through what would normally be a very difficult environment with some of those challenges. So they've worked harder than you know, so I'm sure they appreciate it. Thank you. Anything else?
That's it.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Mott's here?
I have nothing, thank you.
All right. Council President Eaton?
Yes, just a reminder that there will be a Public Works meeting this March. Unfortunately, it will not include Council Member Sparks this time. She's escaping to Arizona. We're trying to buy her out of that idea.
You signed her permission slip.
Not a moment too soon either.
Do we have to vote on that?
I think so. That's all I have.
Jealousy runs rampant.
Well, thank you very much for that warm comment. Councilmember Wilkie.
I have nothing, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council Vice President McGee.
I don't have anything this evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hurd.
Only one thing, I hope she enjoys it.
I hope she does too, and I hope she brings some sunshine back with her and warm weather, so. All right, well, with that, we'll adjourn the meeting. Have a good night.
I thought I had caught this one.